So Katie and I got told that we're doing a session on unique expression, and we see all of you here, and one of the things that strikes me right away is presumably something had you come to a session on unique expression. So if I were to ask you, what does it mean to you, unique expression? Why is it interesting, unique expression? What would you love to get from a session on unique expression? You'd probably have answers to those questions. But rather than asking you guys, I thought I'd start by asking Katie. So, Katie, as you sit here right now, what does it mean, unique expression?
So that as you sit here right now is a key piece. Because every time I've asked myself that question in preparation, I've had a different answer. So right now, how it looks to me when I really kind of feel into my answer for that is that I think Dominic mentioned it earlier, but in my words, however they're going to come out, I would say that we each are an expression of all that is of life. We are the principles in action, and they express through us in a particular flavour. And one of the things I'm fascinated with is people coming together. It's like, so if we're living in our own unique expression, and yet we're humans being together, we seem to have this inclination to gather and do stuff together. I'm fascinated by that, and I really do think it's something beyond necessity for survival. And in my training as a facilitator, there's a metaphor for what's going on in facilitating people to come together in a certain way and to dwell in our true nature and our unique expression. And that metaphor is of conducting an orchestra. So I did say this earlier, but it's coming back to me now that it's such a beautiful notion for me that a conductor of an orchestra or a facilitator, or you don't even have to have a particular role or title or set of skills, just an understanding that when people come together, what you've got is the possibility of the expression of each of those people's individual uniqueness and their very particular note. And that when we truly appreciate that, when we can see that, we open up the possibility of some beautiful harmony happening. And I love that exploration, and I love that we might each, in whatever community means to us, in community with life, in commune with life or with each other, we might each look to what is our note to be played.
Yeah, I love that. I love the very first thing you said was that's a key piece. And the thing that struck me as I was listening to you, that idea of that we are, and that our whole experience is an expression of the wisdom and intelligence behind life, the oneness of life. And the thing that strikes me in relation to that is, first of all, I want to acknowledge my partner, my beloved Emma McDevitt, who can't be here with us at this time, but my understanding of unique expression owes a huge debt of gratitude to her in this. So I just wanted to mention that. And it's kind of interesting who's ever heard of the Three Principles? Anyone? So there's good news and bad news. The good news is I'll tell you the bad news first. The bad news is there really are three principles police. The good news is the only place they exist is your imagination. And the reason I think that's relevant is I heard Mark Howard just say something, which is that he was addressing one of the members of the audience of the Breakout group, and he said, you're one of a very small number of people who have been given the gift of a glimpse of these principles. And I think that's so true. Like, the fact that you're here today means that, if I were to ask you what first sparked your interest in the principles, you'd have an answer. There would be something that caught your attention. Or if I were to ask you, what have you realized that's making a difference for you in your life, you'd have answers to that. And that glimpse is unique. That's a glimpse that's been placed in your heart by life. And you will have your own intuitions, your own nudges, your own instincts about how to take that out into the world in some way. Okay? And that may or may not square with received wisdom about how you should share the principles or what it should sound like or any of that kind of stuff. And my assertion to you, I use the word assertion when I'm saying something I think, and I probably quite like it, but it's not based necessarily in truth at all. My assertion to you is that so like there's these principles, and the nature of principles is they're universal. So gravity works the same way for everyone. Gravity doesn't care what you think. If you throw a Nobel Prize winner off the top of a building, they'll do the same thing as a sea pirate will do. They may shout something different on the way down. But gravity works the same way for everyone. And the principles are a formless, Sid said, the principles are mind is the energy of all things, whether in form or formless. So it's a universal totality. It's everywhere, all at once. It is all space and time, and it exists outside space and time. So it's the whole shooting match. Now, we live in these physical bodies, and that's a form. But there's a spark of that totality in each one of us. And so in my weird way of talking, I think of that as being a local instantiation of that non-local totality. So you've got the principles, and then you've got that spark, which you might call soul, or you might call true self, or you can call it anything. And then you've got ego, personality. Okay. And here's the thing. Soul or true self or inner self, you used to call it your inner being. That's an expression of God that's within you. And it's going to have its own intelligence about what to do, how to do it, all that stuff. And that may or may not line up with what you've heard, what other people are saying, what the community of the principles say. It may or may not line up with that. That's okay, because there's a wisdom and intelligence in you. Sid used to say, just be you. Just be you. And there's a wisdom and intelligence in you that knows better about what's right for you than anyone else in the world. So, with that said, we'd love to know what brings you to a session entitled Unique Expression. So what we want to do is just turn to the person next to you, classic event thing. Turn to the person next to you. We're just going to take like a minute each way to find out, what would you love to get from this? What brought you to this? What would you love to have happen as a result of being here at this session? And then we'll just start taking questions and work like that. So go for it. Do it. You're part of the unique expression. I've thought of a Sid quote I want to share. Let's see if I can find it. All right, swap over if you haven't already done so. Swap over if you haven't already done so. Found the quote.
Like magic.
Yes, the magic of the throne. I'll give you another 30 seconds.
Feels great.
Huh?
Feels great.
Good vibe. All right, let's get back into one group. Come on back, come on back. Just before we check in with you guys, this quote came to mind from Sid Banks. I just love it. It's from a recording of his called Spiritual Reality, which I love. And who listens to Sid Banks recordings regularly? I fucking highly recommend it. And I used to hate listening to Sid Banks recordings, so even if you find them intolerable, there is hope for you. So Sid said, check this out, this is wild. He said, whatever you send forth into the world, so he's talking about your feelings. In fact, I'll read the whole thing. He said, you gotta stop talking about the world. Don't give it any energy. Don't give any negativity energy because it grows. Just ignore it. And all at once you'll start to get understanding because you'll find out that negativity is the opposite of love. And in negativity, this is where mankind gets lost. And this is what creates all the problems. Then here's where he nails it. He lands the plane. I mean, the first bit was good too. But he says, whatever you send forth into the world will come back. It has to come back. Because it really never goes anywhere. Because it's you. You're expressing yourself. Try and find positivity. Start to enjoy. And all of a sudden, you'll start to see things positive. And this is where God starts to show himself. Because you want positivity. And it'll be granted. So, I just like, every time I read that, I'm like, that's it. Like, I can complicate. It's really easy for me to complicate it. I'm good at that. But it's so simple. Like, we're expressing ourselves. And what's being expressed is that wisdom and intelligence within is wanting to emerge into the world. So anyway, we want to hear from you guys. What would you love to know? What would you love to get? What would be great for this session?
And if you struggle to hear, let us know. We've got a mic.
Yeah. And we can just sit quietly. You can just send positivity and love out into the world. The key piece.
Katie.
Right there. Right there.
Oh. I was just looking at Amalia.
I'll run the
Thanks, Gabriella.
Thank you.
So I don't really know what the question is, but what came up when we were sharing was I wanted to explore the crazier side of like craziness, like less. It makes sense. It's logical. We're taking a bit from here. I get that. Oh yeah, that could. Oh, I had an insight. Oh yeah, and then just bringing something up, and more like the absolute creative expression of who we are. In my case, who I am, I suppose. But, yeah, that's it.
Do you want to ask or say anything about that?
No, I think that's right. think it's pointing towards actually being, like right now, that I've got no idea what I'm saying, that being completely in the moment and seeing what's coming through and being like, oh my God, this is coming through me now. And exploring that in a very creative way. Like I like doing a lot of music and poetry and all that sort of thing. But yeah, I find myself spending more of my time doing coaching and doing my business, and I'd like to explore more of that, the absolute creativity, not just in activities like music and art and poetry, but in life all the time.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
It makes total sense to me. I've got a thought on it, and I'd love to hear what Katie's thought is on it. My experience in life and work and business and that sort of thing, it's really easy for me to get focused on my equivalent of the coaching, which is how's the business doing and this and that and the other, and that's really easy for me to put a bunch of my time in there. And yet what I find is that if I'm willing to follow my enthusiasm, like that word enthusiasm comes from the Greek antheos, meaning the God within. And to me, genuine enthusiasm, passion, inspiration, that's that soul, that God within talking to us. But here's the cool thing. What I found is there's almost like a slipstream effect. So like if slipstream is like, if cyclists do this, they'll pull up beside a truck and then get pulled along in the truck's slipstream. I find that if I'm willing to follow the stuff that I'm enthusiastic about, even if it seems daft or irrelevant or inconvenient or whatever, it pulls the other stuff along in the slipstream. And here's the thing, for me anyway, sometimes I do that and sometimes I don't. It's really easy for me to convince myself, oh no, this is more important, I should do this first and that sort of thing. So that, for me, that's a yoga of being, and it's one that's very alive for me at the moment, is being willing to trust those intuitions and instincts, even if they don't make sense. Like for instance, I've just interviewed someone for my podcast, a guy called Jeff Booth, who's written an economics book. Now, I never interview economists for my podcast, but I kept getting this nudge to interview him, so I did. It was an absolute banger. It's not about economics. It's about spirituality. But I had that idea months ago, and it was only when I noticed I'd been discounting it, even though it was genuine inspiration, that I could see it. I was like, okay, let's do it. So I think I want to honor that, what you're calling the craziness of those ideas, and say they'll have their own intelligence and they'll have somewhere they're taking you, and they may even bring a bunch of the other stuff along with them.
Yeah,
that's
really
my take on it.
Sense, because I usually find I'm like, well, I'm happy enough with the idea of it, but I'm not doing it because it's there and it's my project, but I'm not spending time on it. And I think listening to you as well, there's an element of slowing down there as well. Like when I said what comes to me in the moment, sometimes I need a moment, but yeah, I want it to come immediately. And I think it's the same with the creative stuff. It's like, actually, what do I really want to do, rather than just being on this automatic of going from one thing to the next.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I'll say a little bit, and I quite like using the mic. I feel like I can speak more softly, and you can still hear me. So my version of crazy is when I don't think the answer lies in sitting at my desk behind a computer for 8 hours a day, and or thinking the to-do list is the way forward. And my most recent example, and I think I shared this with a couple of people in the room, my morning dog walk takes me by the Mediterranean. So Maria and I live just down the road, so that's really lovely. I get to say hello to the sea every morning. And it's different every morning, and I thought the Mediterranean was a bit like, it doesn't have tides, doesn't do a lot, but actually it's really different every morning. And this one particular morning, it was like a lily pond. I'd never seen it so still. And I was absolutely pulled to go for a swim. I didn't go in that moment because the dog and clothes, and I went straight upstairs, sorted the dog out, put my costume on and went in. And it was really quite early in the morning, and I'm a bit scared of the sea. I feel like it's not my territory, you know, it's another amazing universe of its own. So I'm very respectful and a little bit in awe of it. So going in the morning when it's a bit dark, nobody else around. And I don't know why I'm doing this swim, but I couldn't resist it. I went in, and I did my usual swim, which is to a certain point and back, and I saw 2 manta ray. And this is literally maybe 100 metres from the beach, and I think they come in to sleep at night, and they were laying on the sand. And one of them moved, I got a shock, but then I was like, oh, wow. And then I saw the imprint of another one. And then I knew what it was, and I kept swimming, thinking that was really cool. And I got to just near where I was about to get out, and I said, oh look, there's another manta ray. And there were actually hundreds of, I thought they were imprints, but I realised now they were manta ray. I could not believe it. And I got out of the sea, and that feeling of awe, that feeling of having done something slightly crazy, listening to the pull of the sea, that's out of character for me. I take life quite seriously on the whole. That was the feeling of being alive, and I got to witness something miraculous and remember that that's what we're actually up to every day. And for each of us that will be different, but it's that, can we follow that call in the moment that it comes? And it does come in every moment, it seems to me, when I'm not being too serious about it all.
What else? Yeah, go ahead.
That really resonates with me, that story. Kind of for me, there's something about, I know, sorry, I'm getting a bit emotional about it. There's something about, we've had, so there's this medieval tradition, I don't know exactly where it comes from, of the Lord of Misrule. I don't know whether anybody's heard of that, and it's the idea that there's a mischievous side to ourselves that we need to respect and honour, and different cultures honour that in different ways. And I suppose what sort of nudged me to talk is that, there's this trend to rewild nature, and I think we need to rewild part of ourselves as well. And we need to do things like you just described to kind of follow our more sort of gut instincts, because we have that wildness and that instinct and that incredible energy drummed out of us from an early age. And I myself, I'm just kind of shedding all that bullshit conditioning that I've suffered from most of my life. So I just wanted to express that. But a beautiful story about the manta. I was with you under the water.
Thanks. Yeah, I love what you shared, and the thing that strikes me is, like, I could put conditioning in that top box, and it raises an interesting point, because, conditioning, imprinting, learning, all that stuff, good news, bad news. Like, we're so conditioned that we can show up to an event on time, sit in a room next to each other without getting into fights and stuff like that. So I think a certain amount of conditioning has its place, and yet there's a way in which there's a tension, you could say, between who we really are and the conditioning that we've got from people who are doing the best they can, whether it's parents, family, religious institutions, schools, whatever. And so what we have, as I see it anyway, is we've got an ego, personality, whatever, that is somewhat misaligned with who we really are. And so the journey of coming home to the truth of your being is about that becoming brought more into alignment with everything else. And what that looks like to me is sometimes, like there's a word that Sid used from time to time that I love, but I don't hear that much in Principles, which is courage. It takes courage sometimes to be yourself, to be true to yourself, to call it like you see it, even if you get shunned or even if you get told, no, that's not okay or whatever. And one of the things I've seen a lot, like I gotta say, I am one of those people who feel so blessed to have been given a glimpse of these principles. I never would have figured it out on my own. I feel so blessed to have got a glimpse of it. And then there's a journey to being yourself and becoming more and more fully the expression of who you really are. And that's going to mean stuff comes up that's scary, right? Or uncomfortable or awkward or whatever. And what I hear a lot from people who are explaining the principles is, I feel scared. I guess I'm not seeing the principles right. It's like, no, motherfucker, sometimes it's scary. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you got to suck it up and go for it. Like there's, as far as I can tell, there's not a version of life where you never have to do anything that's difficult. Oh, well, there probably is. I mean, heroin no, if you're a junkie, there's a lot of difficult stuff to do. But so to me, there's a way in which the aligning of personality, the shedding of no longer helpful conditioning to bring it more and more into alignment with who you really are. That's part of the game we get to play if we want to. And there's a way of looking at it, which is whatever's coming up for you is material for your transformation, right? Like it's all grist for the mill, as my friend Kathy Casey sometimes says, you know. And I don't think you need to wait until you see it right in order to do the stuff that you're inspired to do. Like the journey you're inspired to go on has its own wisdom within it. And that's the other thing, you know, I coach lots of people, and what I've noticed is while at the level of principle, yeah, you know, what we're all looking for is to remember who we really are. I've also noticed that each of us have inspirations and authentic desires and things we want to create and do and bring into being. And if I've got something like, I'm really inspired to create this or do that, and I want someone going, well, that's just because you don't understand where your feelings are coming from. I'm like, no, I know where my feelings are coming from and I want to make one of those. And it's like, those are authentic desires. They've been placed in your heart by the wisdom and intelligence behind life for a reason. And so the thing to let go of is the stuff that's not actually what you actually want. To get clear on that, that's really, really useful.
Can I just very briefly add to that? I
Sure.
discovered the other day you used the word courage. The courage is from the old French word courage, which means heart.
Yeah.
It is all about heart.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Craig Forster.
Thank you. What I'm curious about is, to what extent is unique expression about connecting with inspiration in the moment, a bit like the desire to just, you had a spark of going to swim, versus a search for a grand project.
Two options.
And kind of, it's maybe not as binary as that, but I appreciate your thoughts on, where on that.
Yeah, got it. Casey, you first.
What I want to say is each to their unique own. Like our wisdom will let us know, I suppose. I mean, for me, I was looking at Jamie's diagram. He's a master of capturing things in diagrams.
That may be one of Emma McDevitt's, to be fair.
That makes sense then. And it did occur to me, as Dominic said, that there's nothing that is not mind, thought, and consciousness.
Sure.
So that's why it's at the bottom, though, right? So whatever occurs to you in that moment, whether it's the moment you think is the moment or it's at another point in time, which is another moment, is the thing to do. But for me, I'm really trying to get an eye for those moments. Like, instead of running the track of, well, no, I better not go in the sea now because I've got to make breakfast and I've got to get to the desk. And it's to just open up to the possibility of something else and see what happens. That's what I'm leaning into and exploring and seeing if catastrophe is on the other side of it or not.
And now I'm feeling compelled to use the microphone. As I think about your question, Craig, the thing that strikes me is that wisdom and intelligence is expressing through you in every moment. And sometimes it's expressing through you through a feeling of reminding you to come back to who you really are. And sometimes it's expressing through the feeling of, if only I could find a grand project and bring you back to who you really are. And then sometimes you'll get hit by stuff. And like for example, in 1998, I went on a 2-day training course and I had an insight. It's like, I want to become a trainer and a coach. And I was working as a project manager at the time. Well, that insight, I guess that had legs, but I had to follow up on it, right? Like there was stuff to do and that sort of thing. And if you'd have asked me in 2003 or 2004, Jamie, will there ever be a day when you're not passionate about and fascinated by exploring neurolinguistic programming? I would have been like, never gonna happen, man, I love it. But then when I saw the truth of these principles in 2009, I knew in a heartbeat, new direction. I knew instantly, like there was no thought. And then that's been a journey as well, but I wouldn't describe any of it as a grand search. I mean, some projects require more planning and assembling than others, right? Like if I'm writing a new book at the moment, that takes time and energy, and even with ChatGPT, it still takes a certain amount of effort. So there are all kinds of things that I might devote my time and energy to, but to me, the most valuable thing is having an awareness of what's alive for you, what's present for you. But there's something useful, which is many times I've had inspiration to do something, and then the inspiration starts to wane, but the inspiration looks like that's a pointer in a direction, and then I've got to run with it to do something. But that's me, like that. I'm not going to say that that's true for everybody. Anyway, I don't know if that's useful, but that's what occurs to me. What else, guys? Dominic.
Hey, I was really struck. I love this diagram because I was really struck with from the foundation into soul, true self. It's kind of like there's not a lot of trouble there. You can't really get into trouble.
Not
right?
at all. Not
so
at all.
There's a real kind of purity that happens from all that is into a unique soul of that.
But it's all there the whole time, like from day one.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh, there's the trouble, right? Then you go to ego and that part of it. And I was going to ask these questions about it, but then the moment you took that triangle and moved it over, it sort of explains everything.
Yeah. The issue, the aim isn't to get rid of the ego, because I don't know that we can ever do that. Even like Sid, as best I can tell, Sid had ego death. His ego died. But he still, it was still kicking around afterwards, right?
Right.
But there's a way in which it looks to me anyway, like if I look at my own journey, Dominic, even with the principles over the last 15 years or whatever it's been, that's been a gradual process of knocking off the rougher edges of my ego and bringing me more into alignment, but also being more myself. Like I was trying to be a good, compliant Three Principles trainer when I first started out, because I thought that's what I was supposed to do, and my soul kicked and screamed against it. And finally, I just went, I just got to do what makes sense to me and let the chips fall where they may. And there's been lots of uncomfortable learning doing it that way, but I could feel my soul dying trying to do it the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, no one was telling me I should do it that way. That was just like what I got.
Like that would be the right way, and you're not doing it the right way.
Yeah.
The what you said to in here, because you then added in the word conditioning, and there's something so great about that. And I was just in another session on with Rani and Lori. And they talked about how nowadays so much trauma informed whatever, and I used to like, oh please, right, like just really tune out. But I love Rani said something about, wow, that's like a much more compassionate way that psychology, right, used to say, oh, what's wrong with you? Like there's something wrong with you, and then this thing said, what happened to you? It's still, of course, an outsider, but it's a what happened to you has more compassion in it, or more openness to it. So then when you put conditioning in, I think this is what it starts to include. It starts to include that things did happen to you. You made these decisions from a very good basis.
And most of them weren't even conscious decisions, right? Most of them were automatic chains of anchors and things like that. Dominic, I love what you're saying. Would you guys be interested in my take on trauma and how that works? Okay.
Yes.
So this is my opinion, which means not true, but very well informed opinion. So Sally Ann, can I refer to the session we did yesterday? So I did a coaching demo with Sally Ann yesterday, and she was very, very kindly volunteered to come up. And something happened that often happens in those situations, which is I found my way into a feeling of love and connection with my client. And then their system started to feel safe. Now, here's what they've found with loads of meta-analysis of the trauma research, is that about 90% of people, when they experience a toxic event, whatever that might be, about 90% of people fully recover from it within a few months. They get completely over it and even experience what's called post-traumatic growth. So if I were to ask you, what's an experience that you've had that you wouldn't wish to repeat, but that has had you grow in valuable ways that you wouldn't want to be free of? Whose hand would go up to that, right? Lots of people, right? We've all had stuff that we've grown from. But for the people who don't spontaneously heal from that, it's typically because the conditions that the system needs in order to undergo that spontaneous healing is a feeling of safety. And if a person doesn't experience a feeling of safety, then the system just keeps that on hold until such time as they do. And for many of my clients, the first time they have an experience of safety in relation to that stuff is when we're having a conversation. And then all of a sudden, their system starts spontaneously healing it. And how that shows up is in tears and shaking and all kinds of stuff. And their instinctive response in that moment is to hold their breath and tense their muscles to try and stop being embarrassed or smudging their eyeliner or whatever. And my response to that is keep breathing. Keep breathing, because the system is actually running the thing it would have run 3 months ago or 3 years ago or 3 decades ago if there was a feeling of safety at the time. Now, I'm not for a moment saying, so the solution to all trauma is just get people feeling safe, get them to keep breathing, give them 10 minutes and they'll be good as gold, because that would be stupid. But I'm saying that there is a fully healthy mechanism at play here, both in the experience of trauma and in the healing from trauma. And so that's helpful to me. Yeah. Gabriella.
Katie, would you talk about safety and love? Could you talk about safety and love?
Yeah, perfect.
We had a chat. Yeah, I can talk about that.
Yeah, that was the topic.
Safety and love.
Safety and love.
This feels fun. I don't know where to go. Thank you for the prompt. So safety and love. Well, I think for me, there's my idea of love, and then there's love. And maybe the distinction is one feels safe and one doesn't feel so safe. And that's a really useful guidance system. So in my relationship with Maria, like there's times when I'm like, yeah, I love her. You're like, I love her. Yeah, I love her. I really do. But it doesn't feel on solid ground. It doesn't feel safe. And then when I lean into the feeling of rootedness, the feeling of what our unique expression comes together to create, it is this sense of solid ground and safety. And when I look at Amalia, hey, and a job as a parent is to, or I see some of the job as a parent at the moment at least, is to keep her safe. But not necessarily in all the practical ways alone, right? To just in my being, in the love that she inspires in me, to remind her that that's who she is. And I can feel grounded in love and safety and our little family there. And that feels like an expression of all that is. Thank you, Gabriella.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think this is sort of connected. I'm just really keen to know how well, as adults, do we honour and enable the unique expression of children and young people?
I've got a really quick answer. It's a mixed bag. Some people are dreadful at it. Oh, some people are brilliant. Go for it.
I'm brilliant in moments. I think whatever we're up to, we're all doing the best we possibly can. And if we remember that for ourselves and for everybody else, it's really helpful. Bit precarious.
I would just like to share something that I just realized during this conversation. I have always hated the term, "Oh, you can just do your best," because to me that has meant effort, because I have to do my best. My best. That's hard. It's efforting. And what I realized here, also because of previous conversations this morning, I realized in here, I am already doing my best. I am actually always doing my best. I don't have to try to do my best. It's very different doing your best and just being your best. And I'm always being my best unless I try to do. And to me, I think that's something that has always been a source of not feeling safe. And what you also prompted in me that our unique expression is who we are, being who we are without trying to be at our best. It just is our best. So when I'm trying to be my best, I'm just standing in my own way.
Thank you.
Thank you both. The red triangle just showed up as my personal mind looking for safety. And that when it has the experience of safety, it's in that alignment. It's part of the whole. I mean, it's always part of the whole, but it knows it's part of the whole. And it knows to look outside. It thinks that's where the answer is. And seeing that as a solution to the lostness of who we are just kind of loosens the threads of it for me.
Nice.
So thank you.
Show Monday.
I just wanted a phrase I think you introduced me to years ago, Jamie, was the fertile void. The fertile void. And the idea that like the unknown has a lot of possibility and potential, and it can potentially look like a big black hole and might have monsters in it. But I was just wondering if you could speak to that. There's something brewing for me at the moment around needing to walk away and from something and not knowing what the next, walking away without having anything to fill it with, kind of thing. Yeah, I suppose it's taking that first step into that space. Yeah.
Thanks, Joe.
Katie, any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think it's quite the pitch you were going for, but that sounds so exciting. You know, and it doesn't always feel it, right? It doesn't feel it when we're being called to do something less romantic and beautiful than swim in the Mediterranean, and we experience real resistance to that call. And we don't know what's on the other side of it. We've got ideas of what it might be. It doesn't feel exciting. But if there's any possible way we can welcome the unknown then there's the chance we'll find something beautiful. And even if we don't follow that calling, there's a chance we'll find something beautiful.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. The thing that came up as I was listening to Katie, and that sort of bubbled up from listening to you, Joe, was a quote by someone, I can't remember who it is, but I can remember the quote. And it goes, the heart has reasons that reason does not know. And what I'm struck by is that when it's time to take a step into the unknown, it's kind of interesting. It's like, on the one hand, we've got the old world, the world we know, and we've got a lot of detail. If you're anything like me, you've got a lot of detail on the world you know, but you're kind of done with it. And then there's the world your heart longs for, and you've got that pull of that, which I think is your soul. Like, to me anyway, the ego, the personality, our conditioning only knows the past. It doesn't know anything about what's in store for us. It only knows the past. And our heart knows the future. Our heart knows reality. So our heart gets called in directions, and our conditioning sometimes freaks out a bit or whatever. But there's a way in which that inner guidance system is pointing the way. It's pointing the way for you. And my experience is, Joe, is, for me anyway, the way it shows up is, I'm like, but I'm not going to be okay. I'm not going to be okay. And it seems to me that the biggest fear people often have isn't that things won't work out the way they want them to. It's that they won't be able to handle it if that happens. But you will. You will. You have that source of wisdom and intelligence and resilience within you, and you can count on it. Even when it feels like you can't. So what else, guys? Dean Reese Evans. Come around the outside.
I just wanted to say one thing, which is going right back to the beginning. You mentioned the fact that every single person in this room, something happened to bring us all here, yeah? Now, that spark and that moment that we all had that set us on this journey, if you want to call it a journey, casts us from the top to the bottom instantly. And I think one of the things Sid always said was, when you've had an insight, just remember what that insight is and keep looking in that direction, because that moment, that spark, is what casts us constantly back into our soul and back into the heart of what we call the Three Principles. And that's where we live anyway. So just keep focusing on that, because that's where we're always casted. We're constantly being cast down back into the oneness where we came from anyway.
That's spot on.
Thank you.
I like what you did there, Katie. You got Dean to bring the microphone back. It's good.
If you wait long enough.
She was doing a hand signal, but I can't make out what it is. What is it time?
It's time.
Oh, perfect. Sorry, Craig. Thanks very much, everyone.